So which brand of garden hose is the best? If you're like me, you find that they tend to kink or they just don't seem to last. Well, let's get the testing underway and let's find out. In the first test, we'll see which hose has the fastest flow rate. Then we'll see which hose has the most resistance to kinking. We'll test the burst pressure for each hose. Then we'll compare the crush resistance of the hose ends. Finally, we'll repair some damaged hoses. At a price of $15 is this Fildanco expandable 25-foot hose. The garden hose is made of the highest quality materials and latest design. Leak-proof, tear-proof, and crack-proof design, up to 174 psi. Both garden hose ends are made of plastic. The Fildanco is made in China. The Fildanco is very light at only 8 ounces or 227 grams. The 25-foot garden hose shrinks to about 8.5 feet in length when not pressurized. The hole in the hose end is very small at around 7 millimeters. The hose end hole diameter as well as the hose construction impacts the water flow rate. So let's see how long it takes the Fildanco to fill up the 5-gallon bucket with water. I've added dye to the bottom of the bucket so we can easily see the water level. And it took the Fildanco 1 minute and 6 seconds to fill the 5-gallon bucket. At a price of $16 is this Gilmour Flexogen heavy-duty 25-foot hose. The Gilmour is made in USA. The Gilmour Flexogen claims to be the strongest, lightest hose in its class. Patented 8-layer technology. Superior kink resistance, we're going to test that. Lifetime warranty. 500 psi burst rating. Test criteria: burst strength, kink resistance, coupling strength, and abrasion resistance. Hose end appears to be made of aluminum. The Gilmour weighs 2 pounds, 15.4 ounces, 1,346 grams. The opening in the hose end with the Gilmour is around 16.5 millimeters, by far the largest yet. And the Gilmour filled the bucket in only 44 seconds, which is 22 seconds faster than the Fildanco. At a price of $17 is this Worth brand 25-foot garden hose. High quality solid brass fittings maintain a tight seal. Anti-kink hose. Lightweight, making it easier to maneuver, roll up, and store. 5-year warranty. Burst strength is 363 psi. The Worth brand is made in China. The Worth weighs 3 pounds, 5.4 ounces, 1,514 grams. The hose end on the Worth is about 16.5 millimeters. And the Worth brand is 2 seconds faster and takes the lead from the Gilmour brand at 42 seconds. At a price of $18 is this Flexon Pro Series 25-foot garden hose. Crush-proof couplings. The Flexon is made in USA. The Flexon is the heaviest yet at 4 pounds, 3.6 ounces, or 1,919 grams. The hose end on the Flexon is about 16.4 millimeters. And the Flexon needed 43 seconds to fill the bucket, which is just 1 second slower than the Worth. At a price of $22 is this Aqua Plumb 25-foot hot water hose. Up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 82 degrees Celsius. Brass couplings. 500 psi burst pressure. Crush-proof coupling. The Aqua Plumb is made in India. The Aqua Plumb is by far the heaviest at 6 pounds, 12.5 ounces, or 3,080 grams. The hose end opening on the Aqua Plumb is about 11.8 millimeters. The Aqua Plumb filled the bucket in 44 seconds, 2 seconds slower than the Worth hose. At a price of $23 is this Aqua Joe 25-foot fiber jacket hose. Kink and twist free. 600 psi burst rating. Weather and abrasion resistant. The Aqua Joe is made in China. The Aqua Joe is a lot lighter than the rubber hoses at only 1 pound, 13.2 ounces, or 828 grams. The hose end opening on the Aqua Joe is about 10 millimeters. The smaller hose as well as the hose construction slowed the water flow down a little compared to the less expensive rubber hoses, 49 seconds. At a price of $25 is this 25-foot Goodyear Max Light garden hose. Crush-proof extra-large couplings. 400 psi. Lifetime warranty. 40% lighter than the standard rubber hose. Made in the USA with global materials. 3 pounds or 1,362 grams, which is slightly more than the Gilmour rubber hose. The hose end opening on the Goodyear is around 16 millimeters. And the Goodyear moves into a tie for first place with the Worth brand at 42 seconds. At a price of $32 is this 25-foot Briggs Stratton garden hose. Withstands hot water up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Crush-proof heavy-duty couplings. Made in the USA of US and global parts. The Briggs Stratton weighs 4 pounds, 15.2 ounces, or 2,248 grams. The hose opening on the Briggs Stratton is around 11.5 millimeters. And the Briggs Stratton is 2 seconds slower than the Goodyear at 44 seconds. At a price of $36 is this Flexzilla 50-foot garden hose. Extremely flexible, extremely durable, abrasion resistant, crush resistant anodized aircraft aluminum fittings. Won't kink under pressure. The Flexzilla is made in Taiwan. At 50 feet, the Flexzilla is twice as long as the previous brands and weighs 7 pounds, 5.2 ounces, or 3,324 grams. The hose end opening on the Flexzilla is around 11.5 millimeters. The Flexzilla filled the bucket in 45 seconds, or just 3 seconds slower than the liters. At a price of $37 is this Zero G hose. 50% lighter weight, abrasion, leak, and puncture resistant. Kink resistant, crush resistant commercial grade aluminum coupling, 600 plus PSI burst rated, consistent high flow equal to conventional 5/8 inch hose. Assembled in USA, but there's no information on where the components are made. The 0G is a 50-foot hose and weighs 4 pounds 12.1 ounces or 2,162 grams. The hose end opening on the 0G is about 13.2 millimeters. The 0G needed 52 seconds or 7 seconds extra time to fill the bucket compared to the Flexzilla. And the most expensive brand that we'll be testing at $38, as seen on TV, is this Bionic Steel brand. It claims to be kink resistant. The Bionic Steel is made of 304 stainless, 5-year warranty. It doesn't rust and is resistant to leaks, punctures, and extreme drags over tough surfaces. 500 PSI burst strength. The Bionic Steel is made in China. The Bionic Steel weighs 5 pounds 12.2 ounces or 2,615 grams. The hose end opening on the Bionic Steel is very restrictive at around 7 millimeters. The Bionic Steel barely finished the head of the Fildanco expandable hose at 65 seconds. If hose weight is a factor in your purchasing decision, the Fildanco is the lightest at a half a pound, Aqua 1.8, and 0G 2.4 pounds for a 25-foot section. The 3 lightest hoses are expandable or flat hoses. The hose that provides the fastest flow is the Worth and the Goodyear, filling the 5-gallon bucket in only 42 seconds, but the Flexon, Gilmour, Aqua Plumb, and Briggs Stratton were very close behind. All of the rubber hoses fill the bucket faster than the other types of hoses. Let's see which hoses are the most resistant to kinking. The hoses are pressurized at 50 psi. I'll first coil the hose 5 times. Then I'll pull the hoses tight and we'll see how many kinks remain, beginning with the expandable Fildanco hose. 0 kinks for the Fildanco. For a budget price hose, the Gilmour did a very good job with only 1 kink. The Worth didn't do nearly as well, experiencing 3 kinks. Unfortunately, the Flexon seems to be very prone to kinking and had 5 kinks. The Aqua Plumb did slightly better than the Flexon with 4 kinks. The Aqua Joe did a terrific job, 0 kinks. The Goodyear did the same as the Aqua Plumb, 4 kinks. For a rubber hose, the Briggs Stratton did a good job with only 2 kinks. To offer a fair comparison, I measured out 25 feet of hose length for the last 3 brands, and the Flexzilla only had 2 kinks. The 0G did a great job, no kinks. The Bionic Steel also did a great job, no kinks for the Bionic Steel. If hose kinks are a factor in your purchasing decision, the flat or expanding hoses perform by far the best without experiencing any kinks. The Gilmour is a very stiff rubber hose and only experienced 1 kink. Briggs Stratton and Flexzilla each experienced 2. The next test, we'll have 25 feet of hose stretched out, and we'll see how much effort it takes to slide the hose through the grass. The push-pull meter that I'll be using provides measurements in kilograms. The hoses are under pressure and they're filled with water. It took 4.5 pounds or 2 kilograms to pull the Fildanco. The Gilmour has a very smooth and slick rubber outer layer, 5.5 pounds or 2.5 kilograms. The Worth also has a very smooth and slick rubber outer layer and performed the same as the Gilmour at 5.5 pounds or 2.5 kilograms. The Flexon is heavier than the Gilmour and Worth, and it took quite a bit more force to drag the hose at 7.7 pounds. The Aqua Plumb is very heavy and it took slightly less force than the Flexon at 7.2 pounds. The Aqua Joe is very light and the outer fabric is pretty slick, 4.5 pounds, the same as the Fildanco. The Goodyear is a very light rubber hose and it only took 5 pounds to drag the hose. The Briggs Stratton is pretty heavy and it took 6.6 pounds to drag the hose. The Flexzilla is pretty light and it only took 4.5 pounds to drag the 25-foot section of the hose. The 0G is very light and it performed the same as the Fildanco and the Aqua Joe at 4.5 pounds. The Bionic Steel has a smooth polished outer layer and it did the best yet at only 4.2 pounds. In general, the flat hoses took less effort to drag than the rubber hoses. While the amount of force for a 25-foot section of hose is insignificant, if you're dragging multiple sections of hose or say 200 feet of hose, the Bionic Steel would require 34 pounds of pulling force while the Flexon would require 62 pounds. Testing burst pressure may seem extreme, but the manufacturers use burst pressure as a marketing claim, so let's see how they perform beginning with the Fildanco expandable hose. And the Fildanco easily exceeded its PSI rating and finally blew a hole at 650 PSI. The Fildanco expandable hose actually held up better than I thought it would. As you can see, the inside hose came apart as well as the outside. The Gilmour is constructed of a very stiff rubber and it did even better at 725 PSI. Just 1 hole in the Gilmour hose and as you can see, it's a pretty good size hole. The Worth blew a hole at 550 PSI or 100 PSI less than the Fildanco and moves into 3rd place. The Worth brand experienced a horizontal rupture. The Flexon held up pretty well and finally let go at 600 PSI. Massive hole in the Flexon just about blew into 2 separate pieces. The Aqua Plumb did the best yet, finally letting go at 750 PSI. Massive hole in the Aqua Plumb. And the Aqua Joe did by far the best yet, finally coming apart at very close to 1,000 psi. The inner hose of the Aqua Joe experienced a pretty long tear, the outer hose was even longer. The Goodyear also performed very well, finally coming apart at 775 psi. Massive hole in the Goodyear just about blew the hose into two separate pieces. The Briggs Stratton proved to be nearly as tough as their lawnmower engines, finally letting go at 725 psi. The Briggs Stratton took a lot of pressure before experiencing a massive rupture. The Flexzilla did even better than the Briggs & Stratton, making it to 775 psi before the entire end of the hose blew off. The Flexzilla failed in a dramatic fashion, totally blowing the end of the hose off. The Zero G moved into second place behind the Aqua Joe at 850 psi when it finally blew out in two areas. The Zero G failed in two different places, blowing the end of the hose off in one area and the middle of the hose. The Bionic Steel did the best yet at 1075 psi. The Bionic had a blowout in one section of the hose, the other section of the hose totally unraveled. The hose with the highest burst pressure is the Bionic Steel at 1075 psi. Aqua Joe also performed well at 1000, Zero G 850, Goodyear and Flexzilla 775 psi. Let's see how much force it takes to tear off the hose, beginning with the Fildanco brand, 113 pounds. And the Gilmour did a lot better, finally coming apart at 402 pounds. And the Worth proved to be very durable, with the end of the hose finally coming off at 304 pounds. The Flexon only made it to 152 pounds before the hose end let go. And the Aqua Plumb hose end outlasted the hose. The hose made it to 329 pounds before finally letting go. And the Aqua Joe has done the best yet, finally coming apart at 471 pounds. And the Goodyear hose end actually outlasted the hose. The hose split into two pieces at 313 pounds. The weight scale switched over to kilograms for the Briggs & Stratton, 203 pounds or 92 kilograms. The Flexzilla did better than the Briggs & Stratton at 262 pounds or 122 kilograms. And the Zero G did very well at 419 pounds, moving into second place behind the Aqua Joe. The stainless steel metal on the Bionic Steel began unraveling at 81 pounds. So if hose end strength is a factor in your purchasing decision, the two strongest hoses are both flat hoses, the Aqua Joe at 471 pounds and the Zero G at 419. Their very affordable Gilmour also did very well at 402, Aqua Plumb 329, and Goodyear 313 pounds. Let's test the puncture resistance of the hoses next, and we'll see how much downward force it takes for the seam ripper to puncture a section of the hose, beginning with the inner layer of the Fildanco. And it took 759 grams, or just over 1.5 pounds of downward force to puncture the Fildanco. And it took more than twice as much downward force to puncture the Gilmour hose at 1,552 grams, which is about 3.5 pounds. The Worth did even better than the Gilmour at 2,137 grams, or 4.7 pounds. The Flexon moves into third place behind the Gilmour and the Worth at nearly 3 pounds, or 1,342 grams. The Aqua Plumb performed nearly the same as the Flexon at 3 pounds, or 1,329 grams. The Aqua Joe performed slightly better than the Fildanco brand at 1.5 pounds, or 835 grams. It only took 2.4 pounds or 1,089 grams to puncture the Goodyear hose. The Briggs & Stratton performed very well at 3.5 pounds or 1,622 grams. It took nearly 3.1 pounds or 1,406 grams to puncture the Flexzilla hose. The Zero G performed about the same as the Aqua Joe at 809 grams. There's no way this needle is going to puncture some 304 stainless, so I decided not to test the Bionic Steel hose. Regarding puncture resistance, the Worth came out on top at 2,137 grams. Briggs & Stratton also did well at 1,622, Gilmour 1,552, Flexzilla 1,406, and Flexon 1,342 grams. Let's test the hose ends for crush resistance next, beginning with the Fildanco. And the Fildanco began to collapse at 500 pounds. And the Gilmour performed quite a bit better than the Fildanco and began bending at around 2,000 pounds. Unfortunately, the Worth really struggled and began to buckle at only 200 pounds. Just like the Worth, the Flexon began experiencing damage at only 200 pounds. And the Aqua Plumb did by far the best yet at 5,000 pounds before it began experiencing damage. Very impressive. And the Aqua Joe performed very well at 3,500 pounds. The Goodyear performed very well at 2,500 pounds before experiencing damage. The Briggs & Stratton began experiencing damage at 1,000 pounds. The Flexzilla did just as well as the Aqua Plumb at 5,000 pounds. Zero G experienced damage at 1,300 pounds. And the Bionic Steel performed very well at 2,500 pounds. If you need a hose end that can avoid becoming damaged under a heavy load, the Aqua Plumb and the Flexzilla came out on top at 5,000 pounds. Aqua Joe also did very good at 3,500 pounds, and Goodyear and Bionic Steel 2,500 pounds. Hoses can be pretty expensive, and instead of replacing the entire hose when the damage occurs, you can also just replace the end that's damaged using a repair kit. The kit I bought comes with both ends as well as the clamp. A repair kit typically costs under $10, and some of the kits can make multiple repairs. Cut out the damaged area of the hose, install the fittings, and tighten the clamp. It's a pretty easy repair in under 5 minutes. If you have a pinhole or damage to the middle of the hose, you can also use a repair kit that's designed for that as well. Cut out the damaged area of the hose, install the fitting, and tighten the clamps. A couple things I noticed about the stainless steel hose. It does experience damage from impact much easier than a flat hose or a rubber hose. Also, you're much more likely to fall down if you step on the hose when it's on a hard surface. While rubber hoses do weigh more and kink more, they move more water and they're more puncture resistant. So if you're going to buy a rubber hose, I really like the Gilmour. It's a made in USA hose and it's very affordable. If you're looking for a flat hose, the Aqua Joe did perform well, but it really comes down to the price. All the videos in this channel, including this one, are viewer suggested. So if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care and look forward to next time.